Hey guys, I'm AH Designs and welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those that do not know, I've been cosplaying for quite a few years, over 10 at this point, a whole decade plus. And in that decade plus, I've obviously had quite a few experiences in the cosplay world, cosplay community, and conventions. If you want a little more story times and more explanation of some of these experiences, be sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff so you can maybe hear more and let me know if you want to hear some story times because I have many. But things have changed a lot from when I started cosplaying in 2010 to now in 2021. Oh, you're saying that because like everything changes, but cosplay has changed a lot. The entire culture surrounding it has changed. One of those ways is because, well, things have become a lot more mainstream. If you say the word cosplay, it's likely that non-geeks will know what you're talking about. Back in the 2010s, especially right in 2010 when I started, it was a lot more obscure. People would be like, what on earth is cosplay? Only fellow geeks knew what it was, and even then, not every single geek knew what cosplay was, and now non-geeks will even talk about it sometimes. It used to be that you only really knew what cosplay was if you had some geeky friends in your classes in high school or cosplayers in your class, but now it's kind of like a general thing because of apps like TikTok and other places where people are just posting more. Cosplay is becoming more well-known. Internet culture has grown, which means that the cosplay community has grown and the notoriety of the cosplay community has grown a lot as well. And because cosplay is so internet focused and there's such a big community of cosplayers online, it's just kind of natural that it's grown this way. Nowadays, you ask a young person, they'll probably know what it is. Maybe not every single person on the planet knows, but most young people will know what it is nowadays. Another major change would be how accessible cosplay is, in more ways than one. It's easier to get nicely made, pre-made costumes that you buy from online retailers and such, compared to back in the 2010s where if you could find a pre-made costume, it was probably a little, probably wasn't that great. Probably made with really cheap fabrics every single time. Well, now you can actually find some really good cosplay retailers that make pretty decent quality things, as well as people out there putting out their work as commission-based costume projects where people will make them for you with a certain fee. So there's a lot more places to get a nice cosplay from. There's so many resources that you can do your research and pick and choose, not just have to go with the only option available. It's also easier to get materials to make cosplays. Back in the day, it was really hard to find things like, you couldn't find thermoplastics, you couldn't find specific things made and designed specifically for costume making. And nowadays you can walk into Michael's and there's a cosplay section with EVA foams, Worbla, and Worbla Pearly art, and silicone molds for cosplay specific things with the heat guns right there. And it's absolutely mind-blowing, and my 13-year-old self my mind would have been exploded onto the wall at that point. Like, that would have been absolutely mind-blowing to see that back in 2010. Not to mention that it's a lot easier to get high quality fabrics online from trusted resources, and there's just more fabric available out there in local fabric stores and such. In general, things are a little bit more accessible to get just about anything online these days. And I can't talk about this without talking about wigs. Oh boy, wigs and buying wigs and styling wigs has changed so much. Nowadays, we are so lucky that we have places like Art of Wigs Canada to get high quality wigs that you know you can trust, and you can test out the colors beforehand by having a color wheel, all of these things. Back in the day, purchasing wigs online was such a gamble. And a lot of times you'd have to settle for a party store wig that you couldn't really style, and they were super shiny, super cheap. They weren't great, but you know what? We made do back in the day with those. I'm not gonna get too much into it though, because Cat Crunchies did an entire video about this exact subject, about how wigs specifically in cosplay have changed throughout the years, and they have 10 more years even more experience than me, so I'm gonna link that somewhere and you guys should go check out that one. But in general, we now have way more resources, whether it's for making or buying cosplay. Veteran cosplayers have paved the way for us with resource books, resource videos. If you want to make a specific character, you can likely find a pattern for it online, such as on Etsy, or you can even find commercial patterns by McCall's and Simplicity and such, with patterns that are designed specifically for cosplay. Again, mind would have been blown if I had seen that in a fabric store when I was 13 years old. We're so lucky to have cosplayers like Yaya Han, Kamui Cosplay, really paving the way so new cosplayers can get a good grip and a good step into the cosplay community if they want to start. Let me know if you think I should make a video about some of my favorite online YouTube resources, because there are some incredible people out there making some really, really good tutorials. Some are character specific, some are not, and they're really wonderful and have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it. So if you think I should make a video about that, do let me know in the comments down below. Social media. Oh, how it's changed. Facebook was a thing back then, but like not a thing, if that makes sense. Facebook pages were not a thing. You couldn't have a following on Facebook at that point. And I don't think very many people were on Instagram at that point. I was a little young to really focus on the social media aspect at that point, but I know very well that Facebook pages were not a thing. So you could not adapt followers, you could only just add friends on your personal profile. So if you wanted to have a cosplay specific page, you'd have to make a whole other profile for it and add friends. So very, very different from what you have today with follower counts and such. But DeviantArt was the place to be. That was the cosplay social media. And also on forums like Cosplay.com, which is not even alive anymore. Can someone tell me if Cosplay.com is still a thing? I haven't checked for a long time. But I remember back in the day, like one of the big things was getting a daily deviation. Even now, I've gotten one recently and I was like, wow, my 13-year-old self would have been so proud of that. But that was like the goal back in the day, to get your cosplay noticed on such a big scale like that. And nowadays, I mean, DeviantArt's still a thing. People still post there. I still post there. I'll have my link in the description down below. But I still post on there sometimes to post my photos in really good quality, because other social media sometimes kind of wrecks the quality, so you can actually see it in its full glory over on DeviantArt. But now you have Instagram, TikTok, Facebook pages, which are also dying though right now as far as I know. But you have all these different forms of social media where you can gain followers without having to add friends and stuff like that. And those are like the places to be. I think especially Instagram now, that is the place to find people, discover new cosplayers, and follow people and make friends and such. And conventions have definitely changed a lot. Oh, conventions, how I miss them. Obviously, in the 2020s, we haven't had very many, unless depending on what areas of the world you're in. So I haven't been to very many in the 2020s, but leading up to even the culture in 2019 versus 2010 was very, very different. Things have evolved, things have changed, rules have updated, things like that. In 2010, it was all just caramel dancing. Everyone was wearing Naruto headbands. Glomping was a thing. Thank God that's gone. There was the Harahi Sumazuma. I can't say it, but we know what dance I'm talking about. Everyone was doing it, whether or not they were cosplaying from that series. Does anyone even know what that dance is nowadays? Let me know down in the comments if you actually are familiar with that piece of forgotten culture, apparently. And there were gray trolls everywhere getting face paint everywhere, wearing model magical horns. There weren't as many people at cons back then as there are today, but I mean, some conventions were still already pretty big at that point, such as like Attack-a-thon in Montreal, which was my first con ever and was absolutely mind-blowing. And I think my younger self would be more mind-blown if I had gone to one today. Nowadays, though, the con culture is a little different. You can see people doing TikTok dances in the hallways. The participants are way more diverse because more people are more comfortable in doing cosplay. The skill level has increased a lot because, of course, we have more resources and there's more people cosplaying, so the level of costumes are being made and worn at these events are just astronomical, and the competitions are intense these days. They were pretty good back in the day, but there's so many people and there's so many good, talented people out there. It's just grown so much. It's just bound to happen that way. And instead of Naruto headbands, you see people wearing either just their casual clothing and a Deku or Bakugo wig. Way more casual cosplays. There's way more people in cosplay. But instead of Naruto, it's definitely My Hero Academia now. Back in the day, panels were more like Ask panels and stuff, and now they're way more informative than ever and really, really good because people are getting really into doing panels, which is really, really lovely. The main people who had a voice in the cosplay community is also very different. It's far more diverse now. Back in the day, there was just like a few popular cosplayers, but now we have a whole bunch of cosplayers who do cosplay as a career, which again would have been mind-blowing for me in 2010. It's not just Yaya Han and just Kanigiri. There's hundreds on there. Just go take a look at Patreon and how many are doing it full-time over there, for example. But there's so many doing full-time cosplay gigs. And a lot of these voices aren't just popular because they're cosplayers, but it's because they're sharing some of those resources that I mentioned earlier, and that's how they've got to do this kind of thing full-time. Cosplay and being at conventions is also a whole lot safer now. Like I mentioned before, glomping was a thing back in the day. Oh, someone's dressed as something from the same series as you, you could just hug them out of nowhere and attack them or whatever. It was a big problem back in the day. Many of my friends have horror stories about it. Maybe if any of them post any, I will link them down in the description down below. We'll see if any of my friends have some good ones to share. But now we have a major cosplay is not consent model, and I think it's definitely because of that whole situation and other situations that have arisen. So there's a lot more focus on cosplayer safety and just general convention safety, which is a very, very good thing. But it was really a weird norm before to have people just like hug people they've never met before just because they're dressed as this character. Cons were a little weird back in the day, though I guess you could still say they're a little weird now, depending on who you ask. But honestly, most things in the cosplay community have changed for the better and for safety and stuff like that. Other areas a little bit more questionable, but for the most part, cosplay is a safer community to be in now, which is very, very nice and more diverse than ever. We're still working on some things, people are still advocating for things, and there's still issues, but we're working on it. There are people actively working on making this a safer community for everyone and a better community for everyone, which is appreciated across the world. Cosplay is becoming more accepting, more diverse than ever, and that is such a good thing to see. Back when I started, people were afraid to cosplay because of XYZ reason. All sorts of reasons that should not have been able to stop them, but did because they're worried about how other people would react. So I'm really glad people are pushing for more things these days. There's more age diversity, there's more people of color cosplaying. I have a video about how everyone can cosplay. You should definitely check it out if you are worried about cosplaying yourself for whatever reason it could be. I have a guest speaker on that video who did an excellent job explaining and is really, really inspiring. You should go check that out. All of this though makes me really wonder about where cosplay will be 10 years from now. What will cosplay be like in 2030, for example? Because things have changed so much, I would have never been able to predict that the cosplay community would be where it is now, where conventions would be now, and just how cosplay just in general is. Here's to the next 10 years of cosplaying. Here's to another decade of the cosplay community evolving. I'm really excited to see where it's gonna go eventually, and I hope you guys are too. So be sure to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and consider following along to see where my journey in the next 10 years will go, because I am not stopping cosplay anytime soon because I'm far too curious about where this community will go. So thank you guys so much for watching and discussing this with me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys later.